Here's a picture of Dr. Clement Legore. My remarks will be brief. I will not be speaking much about Dr. Legore because Madame Jean has educated us about him, but I want to use him as a symbol of what we will be doing over the course of the next 2 days. So past, future, African Canadian history, arts and culture in STEM education. It is a history conference, but I wanted to look at history in a different way. I wanted to look at history through the lens of STEM education. And we could even put the letter A in it now, STEAM, the letter A for arts, the arts. You know, going to universities in Canada, putting my children through elementary and high school and then university, it has always been a battle in looking at the curriculum and trying to find stories or narratives about Black people. It was my experience, it's my children's experience. Even after I wrote books, I remember my daughter, who is here, Habiba, when she was in grade 3 or so, and she came up, you know, at that age, there's a topic on the social studies curriculum called pioneers. I'm sure anyone who went through the Canadian system did that. And so she came and she was talking about the pioneers, you know, people like Laura Secord, if you're from Ontario. And so I looked at it and I said, well, people, we are the Black pioneers. She said, oh, well, my teacher didn't say they were the Black pioneers. She said, there were no Black pioneers, Mommy. My teacher said there were no Black pioneers. So I photocopied some pages of a book that I did with Caroline Smart and Adrian Shad. It's called The Underground Railroad Next Up Toronto. And there's a section in it where you talk about the early Black people in Canada. So I photocopied it, put it in an envelope, gave it to Habiba to give to her teacher to say, here are some examples of Black pioneers. But you know, I'm a historian, but my own child was telling me that, no, teacher said there are no Black pioneers, so Mommy, think you have to come again. So it's been this constant struggle, this constant quest for equity, for justice through education. And that's one of the reasons we are having this conference, to have this conversation with educators, with teachers, with professors, with students, with the public at large, to say, to discuss how we can integrate Black history within the Canadian history school curriculum, bearing in mind that we know that each province, the education is not, there's no national mandate. Each province has its own jurisdiction in terms of that. So it's a big task for us, this project, the Black People's History of Canada, which is funded by the Department of Canadian Heritage, that we do this research and then we write the curricula and have this knowledge integrated within the school system. And then our next big task is to put all of this knowledge, all of this data on a website which will be available for free for everyone across the country. Another objective is to have all the material translated in French, to make it bilingual, because there will be material in French which will have to be translated in English. And that costs money, so we have to continue fundraising for that. So that's our dream, and that is our ambition. It's something that governments and schools and universities and other institutions should invest in, because it is the future. If we're going to live lives of justice, then we're going to have something like this. And when we talk about equity and diversity and inclusion, it has to be more than lip service. I always think about the poet Phyllis Wheatley, a young child who survived the Middle Passage, came on board one of the slave ships to Boston at the age of maybe 8 and survived, became a poet. By the time she was 13, she was writing poetry, had her poems published, eventually collected them in a book. And I think of her often because she was the first Black woman within these Americas to publish a work of poetry or any kind of work, a literary work. And she came to these Americas as an enslaved child. But Phyllis Wheatley always talked, and she died when she was 34 years old. She always talked about, having this great vision. I'm thinking, wow, having this great vision. And she herself is an example of having that great vision. So we have to have this great vision as we move forward. We have to have the hope and the love and what Her Excellency just talked about, rising above. People like Dr. Legore and Robert Sutherland, who graduated from Queen's University as a lawyer, and how he bequeathed his wealth to Queen's University, something like it was about 12 to 15,000 pounds that he gave to Queen's and saved that university. A Black man from Jamaica who, when he graduated from Queen's, excelled, got the gold medal for mathematics and classics. I mean, isn't that just great? The humanities and STEM, and saved the university. And here is Dr. Legore from Trinidad. Isaac Saney would be proud of him. This image, I like it a lot. He's kind of steering into eternity, Handsome man, if I may say that. And devoted his life to civil rights, devoted his life to education, devoted his life to saving people. And Halifax has forgotten him. And so we won't forget him, though. We won't forget him. There are efforts now underway to recognize the great contributions he made in the explosion at the Amanda Hospital. He named it after his mom, hospital at North Street and Robie Street, because he was denied hospital privileges in Halifax. Co-founded the number 2. And I looked at some of the documents from the Canadian military, and when they told him he failed his exam by 1 point, imagine, it's a Queen's University graduate of medicine. They just didn't want him to go to Europe. He was too educated. He didn't know his place. And so they denied him that opportunity to go to Europe and to be an officer. So those are some of the narratives we will be highlighting here in the conference. And I want to take this chance to just, again, welcome all of you. And is Jessica here? Or is she in the room? There's Jessica. And to just acknowledge some of the people who worked hard, extremely hard, to make this possible. I call Jessica, she's the administrative assistant for the project. And I know many of you dealt with her, by phone, fax. Nobody uses fax anymore. So phone, fax, phone, and social media, email. Thank you, Jessica, for all your hard work. And to Dana Campbell, who is a research assistant on the project. Wave, Dana. I said Dana and I are relatives. Somewhere down the line, we share a bloodline. Campbell is my mother's maiden name. So, and Wade Paff, who is here. So, Wade was from Halifax. Now he's from St. Catharines, Ontario. He was born in St. Catharines, Ontario, but he came to Dalhousie to study. So, So these individuals worked tremendously hard, and I thank you very much for all your efforts. And Rosanna is on the floor. Wave Rosanna, she's our events person. And I also want to thank Fernwood Books for bringing some of their wonderful publications on Black studies. And to all of you who came from across the country, I know people came from Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, everywhere to make this conference possible. Thank you for responding to the call, and thank you for your generosity. I see Adrian Shad there and Natasha Henry. They're two senior historians on the project. Thank you for your work. And I would also like to acknowledge my chair, Dr. Krista Kesselring. She's the chair of the history department. Thank you, Krista, for coming out to the opening. And to all the volunteers we've had, people have just been tremendously volunteering their time. Thank you. My daughter Habiba came up from Toronto to help me, and I thank her for doing that. And she will be here at this conference and then at Her Excellency's Black Canadian Summit Conference. Again, Your Excellency, thank you very much for all your support. This was wonderful. Thank you for your time and your grace. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Frank. And thank you, everyone. And I hereby open it up.